Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
I thought you were going to play Mel and Tim here a little bit more of Backfield in Motion. The people want it. Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox.
We got a lot of
top
people.
10 hit.
Yeah. Backfield in Motion.
What day is it today? Thursday? Today's guest, including Farhan Lalji, standing by, brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants home opener is Friday, September 20th against the Seattle Thunderbirds. Season tickets are on sale for as low as $17 a game, and they include tickets to the first 2 home playoff games, plus a free WHL live subscription, or grab a flex pack available in 6 or 12 game packages for as low as $22 a game. Head to vancouvergiants.com/season tickets and don't miss out. BC Lions hosting the Argos Friday. Legends night at BC Place. Easy segue here. Speaking of legends, from TSN, Farhan Lalji joins us for the first time this D&D season as we check out the shot of you with Bianca Andreescu at the Monday night game, San Francisco. What was that all about, Farhan? What can you tell me? By the way, welcome back.
Well, yeah, speaking of legendary, this is a legendary level of lateness for you guys to get into my segment on the first week of the show. It's like, what is it, 10:23? What are we doing here?
He's the bus driver.
Well, exactly.
Makes sense.
You must have had a very good summer. You're picking your feet up. Of Lisa feeding you hand and foot, just taking care of you, nobody's business.
Yeah.
Bianca Andreescu, I was down in the field doing my stand-ups, and she came by, and some of her friends and crew and teammates came by, and they saw the TSN mic and they wanted to visit, and it was awesome. I hadn't had a chance to meet her before. Obviously, I've watched her compete, and she's an incredibly charming young lady. I know she's been through a lot on the injury side this past season, so I'm really looking forward to seeing her next year. And when she's had an off season to recoup and recover, and she did have some pretty good results, and I know that she's ready for a real bounce back season. But just it was great getting to know her, great getting to talk tennis a little bit, and me learning a little bit more about what she does and her passion for football. She really loves the game, so that was pretty fun too.
Yeah, a couple of Canucks hanging out there. Hey, how did Aaron Rodgers look on Monday night?
I think he looked tentative. I think he looked conservative. That drive, the second drive of the game, where he was, I think, 6 for 7 for 65 yards and led him to the touchdown. You thought, okay, here we go. Now he can build on this, and then just flatline after that. I think those were the only passing yards he had in the first half. And you could see, for the most part, just how quickly he wanted to get the ball out of his hands. He was backing away from certain hits that normally he wouldn't do that with. And then, as the game got deeper, he got a little bit more comfortable. But, even in the second half, right? I mean, he had 2 passes, back-to-back passes, that led to touchdowns to Alan Lazard, who he's obviously very comfortable with from their time in Green Bay. And one of them was kind of a fluke because the defender for San Francisco was so far offside, everybody in San Francisco's defense stopped playing. And so there was so much of the offense concentrated in such few plays, they really couldn't get much going. They couldn't get the run game going. So I think they're going to get better. But honestly, I was more surprised with how bad their defense was. Because that defense, I thought, was championship caliber, plug and play right out of the gate. And they were the group that, you worry about, because if all of a sudden you need Aaron Rodgers right out of the gate to score 30 points a game to get you wins, you're in trouble right now if you're the Jets.
Hey, Farhan, sticking with the NFL, Buffalo at Miami tonight, Thursday night football. I don't know if you want to get into this, but what's your take on what Tyreek Hill went through last weekend?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation for sure. I do think that the officers overreacted a little bit. When they knocked on the window, did they need to knock on the window? Probably not. They probably could have verbally got him to open the window. But when they did knock on the window, he could have also handled that a little bit differently and opened it at that point, right? So it obviously got heated really quickly. And if you're Tyreek Hill, you're used to being treated a certain way, which isn't necessarily right. So I've had responses on both sides of it, but I do think the way the officers acted was excessive. I think the situation got escalated very quickly, needlessly, and I think most of the blame for that falls at the feet of the officers. Now, I'm not a defund the police guy. Yep. I have total respect for everything officers do, and they put their lives on the line daily, right? So, but I also think that down in the U.S., there's there's a different level of problem there because there's so many layers of policing in the United States that you can't have everybody qualified. Do you know what I mean? Like, everybody gets a gun, and you could get fired from this level of policing and get hired by that level of policing. So the qualification levels aren't the same, so people don't necessarily act the same. And, whether or not there were racially based reasons for why they reacted the way they did, I don't know, right? Like, I could sit here and draw a big brushstroke on everything and say it's all about race, and I'm not prepared to do that. I just think some officers acted poorly, escalated the situation needlessly, but Tyreek Hill probably could shoulder 10% of that blame because he could have dealt with it differently too.
All right, Farhan, the Lions, very impressive win in Montreal. Just, I think, one of their best road victories in years.
I thought you wanted to talk about Winnipeg.
That's your favorite team, Winnipeg. Everybody knows you hate the Lions, you like Winnipeg. It's just ridiculous. It's very sad that a guy based in Vancouver loves Winnipeg as much as you do. Anyways, let's talk about the team that plays here, the Lions.
Yes,
Argos tomorrow night. Look, Nathan Work looks great last week.
Yes.
Matthew Betts is back. They're rocking and rolling right now. What's impressing you about them last 2 weeks?
Well, really, all of it. And I think what happened in the Montreal game that was most impressive was their ability to respond and also to play complementary football, which hasn't necessarily been there a lot this year. I think the defense has had a lot of hiccups along the way. Their tackling has been poor. They've been plugging and playing in different spots, and there are some holes there. But now all of a sudden, Matthew Betts doesn't necessarily take over games, but he allows everybody else to get better matchups, and that makes everybody else better, right? So that was good. And then all of a sudden, Nathan Rourke turned the ball over a couple times early, but they were able to limit the damage, right? Which hasn't happened in previous games. The first time he turned it over, 2-0. Second time he turned it over in scoring territory, they were able to limit them to a field goal. That allows your offense to play with a little bit more comfort, right? So, I think they're tackling better, and and Betts is allowing some better matchups. But then offensively, you can just see the progression in Nathan Rourke every game, right? Offensively, they've gotten better, and he's getting the ball out of his hands quicker. He's seeing the field better. He's making decisions, faster. He's not double clutching. And I think having a run game to lean on, which is something they haven't had before, and I don't know how long, guys.
Oh, so long.
William Stanback has over 500 yards rushing in the last 5 games. So if you want to look at potential MOP candidates in a race that's wide open this year, how about William Stanback? And so now if you're Nathan Rourke, you can lean on him. If you're Jordan McSimic, you're finally confident enough in your run game that you actually call it and use it, which he hasn't done enough of in previous years. So you add all of that up, and it's good. And in the game last week, there were 3 moments in that game where Montreal scored at key times, including one right at the end of the half when they went for it there, when they could have kicked the field goal. And every time BC responded with points, right? They just never let Montreal build momentum. So, there's so many layers to it, but it was a complete win. And that's the thing, it wasn't just one side of the game that impressed me. So many sides of what they did were impressive, and they can really build on that going into this week.
Okay, Vernon Adams is healthy. I like Donnie and I talked about this. I feel for the guy. I mean, when they had won 5 straight, people were talking about him as the MVP of the league. Not since Dickinson and Printers have we seen 2 great quarterbacks like this on the same BC Lions roster. What are your thoughts on Vernon Adams and how they deal with him the rest of the way?
Love VA. You know how I feel about him as a player and a person, and how he's handling this current situation just magnifies how much this guy has grown. And he legitimately wants Nathan Rourke to succeed. He's not in the background hoping Nathan can fail so he can get back in. And Nathan respects Vernon big time. So you talk about Printers and Dickinson in 2004, Ricky, like you were in the middle of that, and those guys hated each other. They hated each other.
Yeah.
And it was a toxic locker room environment, and this could have been that. Because Vernon has a lot of people who love him in that locker room, and maybe didn't play extensively with Nathan 2 years ago and have a certain amount of loyalty to Vernon. So Vernon could have got in, and he could have dealt with the situation differently and really fractured that room, and Vernon didn't do that. So I know Rick Campbell says that he wants to reevaluate the quarterback situation after the bye. And I think this is Nathan's job to lose now. And that's no shot at Vernon. Vernon was playing well. And I think he would have played well again, right? Because, his last 2 games weren't great, but neither were Nathan's first 2 games, right? So there's no reason to believe that Vernon couldn't have turned it around and done really good things, right? So I think Rick's saying the right things, and I think he's legitimately going to take a look at it. But I have no reason to believe that Nathan Rourke isn't going to play great again this week and throw for over 300 yards. And if that happens, it's going to be his job going forward, right? Mm-hmm. And Vernon's going to do everything he can to stay ready. And if all of a sudden Nathan falters, I think Rick Campbell owes it to everybody to seriously consider putting Vernon back in, which I think he would. But this is a rare thing because you need to show me the locker room anywhere, the football locker room anywhere that has two quarterbacks like this, the genuine, in either league. And, I don't know that there's two goaltenders, right? Luongo and Schneider really liked each other, but those are rare situations, right? So I think the Lions are lucky that the two players are handling it this way. And Vernon is going to start somewhere next year, right? If Nathan Rourke does all the things we expect him to do, there's still going to be a massive demand in this league for Vernon Adams a year from now, and the Lions can benefit from it.
Okay, and quickly, Farhan, before we let you go, Printers Dickinson, I know they didn't like each other. It fractured the team on the field, in the locker room. It was good for the franchise.
Oh.
It got them a lot of attention, a lot of talk on
tickets,
talk radio and television. It was, I think there was a silver lining there.
But yes, but in 2004, people would talk football anyway, right? Like right now, you could use a good old controversy to raise the media conversation and things like that. But back then, I guess it was good. They always say that there's no such thing as bad press, right? Mm-hmm. But look, we were there, guys, at Grey Cup, and that room was incredibly impacted. And Casey wasn't Vernon Adams, right? We all believe that Dave Dickinson was was this great guy that we all know and love, but even Dickinson didn't like Printers. It was a two-way thing there that they didn't like each other, and the locker room was entirely divided. So, that was they don't make him like that anymore. And then you had Rick calling Printers' agent every 5 minutes. Was it Jason Medlock?
We never saw
Rick and Jason Medlock in the same room. So I'm convinced they were the same guy.
Yeah. Jason Medlock. And I'll never forget Ottawa. Oh, my goodness. Printers' body language in the second half when Wally refused to put him in when they were losing.
He's the most outstanding player. And
he got MVP award Friday, and Wally refused to put him in on that side. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But you know what? If Casey had acted like Vernon, maybe Wally puts him in.
Yeah.
There you go.
Ego, pride.
But they got a whole lot of attention, and that's where I was going with that. It wasn't necessarily bad for the franchise. We'll give you more attention, and we'll try to get you started on time next week, Farhan, if that's okay.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for not asking me about Canuck training camp because there's lots of time for that.
We'll do that.
Yes.
Don't worry, that's coming. Thanks, Farhan.
All right,
appreciate it.